This is the Fleet Europe podcast, hosted by Luberto van Buiten and Steven Schoefs. Today's topic, electrifying commercial vehicle fleets. Introducing today's guests, Pieter Vervaet from Toyota Motors Europe and Pieter Goossens from Athlon International. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to this second podcast of Fleet Europe, and today we are going to discuss the electrification of commercial fleets. I am Luberto van Buiten, Editor-in-Chief at Fleet Europe and the host of today. And always by my side, ladies and gentlemen, is Steven Schoefs, our Manager Buyer Acquisition.
Welcome, and also welcome to our guests, Luberto.
Indeed. We have with us Pieter Vervaet, Manager International Corporate Sales at Toyota Motors Europe. Welcome.
Thank you.
And we have Pieter Goossens, Manager Global Business Development at Athlon International. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
It's a little bit difficult because you are both called Pieter. So to make it a little bit more clear for the listeners and viewers, we have to call you by your last name. Hope that's not a problem. Normally I would ask it the other way around. Well, we are not going to do a very large introduction, but a short one. Mr. Goossens, on your LinkedIn profile, you mention a heavy focus on e-mobility rollout. How's that going so far?
Depends on what market you're looking at, but for us, it's going very well. We're overachieving the targets we had set ourselves quite a few years ago, so it's going well. It's mostly driven by certain markets. Of course, the further you go south, the lower the penetration rate.
And where's that line? When does it start to get too southern, so to say?
Well, let's say it drops below 10 when you're really nicely at the Mediterranean. Then it becomes quite soft.
Yeah.
And what is the biggest reason? Is it like the supply of vehicles? Is it the behavior of the customers? Is it the infrastructure?
I think it is mostly governments. It's show me the money, baby, is usually what it is about. We also have to remember that EVs tend to be more expensive and that electrification comes from the top. It starts with the expensive models and goes down, and that these markets have lower GDPs per person. So you're also talking about markets with a little bit less availability of investment.
Okay, that's very clear. Then, Mr. Vervaet, I got this from LinkedIn, so if you didn't update your profile correctly,
Could be.
Let's check that as well. You previously worked as a manager customer experience and
Correct.
for the network department. So I was wondering, are car dealers enough involved in selling vans in general and the electric ones in particular?
So if you talk specifically for the Toyota network, yes, quite recently, let's say in the last 5 years, we did quite some progress in developing a specific network for professional cars. We even have a brand, Toyota Professional. So that was quite a big task to really develop that network. We have about 10% of our total network. We have about 3,000 retailers in Europe. 300 of them are basically Toyota Professional centers. And they're, of course, very specialized for that specific business.
Do they need training to sell specifically the
Correct.
electric vans? So
Also, yes.
is it very different than selling, let's say, a diesel van?
Yes, indeed. Because, of course, technology is different. But what is very important for vans, electric vans, is, one of the constraints is payload. So how do you basically manage that payload as efficient as possible? So there are really people trained to really how to load your van and tips and tricks related to this. So this is really something where the kind of network is trained for.
Yeah, okay, that's clear. Then, of course, we're going to have our topic of the day, which is all about electrification of vans, of course, because the advisory board, the Fleet Europe Advisory Board on Commercial Fleets, launched a position paper during our Commercial Fleets Summit. Steven,
Yes.
what's that about?
Yes, so we have an advisory board already since more than 1 year. It's with different industry experts, both fleet managers, but also industry suppliers. And one of the things that was said was that it would be good that also as an industry, as the commercial vehicle industry, that we would try to be more vocal towards legislators, towards policymakers. And then we sat together and we brainstormed and decided what would be the first ideal topic. And the topic of electrification came out first. Why? Because there are the most challenges, but also the opportunities are there. And we know that the European Commission is examining how to go forward with its Green Deal and also with the electrification of our transport. And so it comes at the right moment that we could present at the Commercial Fleet Summit this position paper where we mention, let's say, the recommendations that the industry has towards policymakers to make a more seamless electrification.
All right, we're coming back to that later, of course. But before we go to the topic of the day, we have another section, which is my favorite because we didn't let our guests prepare for this one.
Okay.
I have to admit that. It are the opening statements. So, gentlemen, here we go. Pieter Goossens, for you, the statement is leasing companies are not well enough equipped to sell vans to SMEs.
Thank you for that unprepared question. I think the answer is in the question. We don't sell EVs. We sell a product that is operational lease. And it is partially true that in SMEs, the service part is sometimes less valued or less demanded by customers. The whole tires, maintenance, repair, insurance. SME customers have a tendency, or in a lot of markets, have the capability to organize all that themselves. So there are SME customers that think, whoa, operational lease is expensive. Of course, it isn't. It's just a service product all rolled into a financial product.
Yeah, but I also hear a lot of times that the electrification could maybe just that trigger for more SMEs to go for operational lease instead of buying a van themselves. Do you see that as well?
Yes, and we also see that with cars. The one of the big advantages of a leaseco is that we are risk takers. That we take the risk of, for example, the residual value into our books, and for a diesel, SMEs are pretty knowledgeable, and they know they ran their last diesel van into the ground for 8 or 9 years. For EVs or for anything electrified, they are a little bit more hesitant, and they then all of a sudden discover the solution of operational lease.
Yeah. Okay. So that's good news for you, of course. Pieter Vervaet, our statement for you is the following: traditional OEMs started way too late with electrifying their cars and vans.
So I would say not 100% agreeing with the question, or with the statement, sorry, because I would say that still, even now, there's such a supply. The takeoff of EV is still pretty, let's say, disappointing. Let's put it like this. But I think, and there are a number of reasons for this. And of course, certain things are OEM related, where the product is not yet perfect, related to range anxiety and so on. But there's also terms like, for instance, the infrastructure. Also, the legislation is sometimes not helping. Sometimes it's a yo-yo effect. For instance, in Germany, there's incentives and then they fall away, which is then basically losing trust a little bit in the business. Also, then I think you can confirm from a leasing company, then there's some impact on the residual values. They were first quite good, then they go down. So there's quite some turmoil, and I think we're all in this business to kind of kick this off. But I would not say we are too late versus Chinese brands or.
Okay, very very clear. Thank you very much.
I would just like to add or ask specifically for your brand, for Toyota.
Yes.
You stepped in quite late with battery electric.
Full battery, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
full
yes.
battery electric
Yes.
technology. That's correct.
Correct, yes.
Yes. So, and even there, you say we are not too late on that
Basically,
aspect.
if you purely look from a business point of view, I think if you look a bit at the figures, Toyota is one of the brands in Europe who has been growing fast.
Mhm.
So from that perspective, we don't. It doesn't have a negative effect on our business. On the contrary, I think we have basically done the test with electric vehicles back in 2011, 2012. There we recognized we are too early.
Mhm.
And we basically chose the path to fully invest more in hybrid technology. But now the time is there, indeed, to be there for the market, to be ready with electric cars.
Yeah. Because
I
you
think
were one of
in
the
our,
sorry, yeah.
So in our opinion, we come just in time.
Yeah, yeah, because you were one of the first with a hybrid car.
Correct. Yes.
Exactly.
Everyone in the Netherlands
Yes.
drove a Prius, and it was not, I think, because they are so beautiful, but because
It's practical.
it was very cheap in
Yeah.
taxes. But then it took a little bit longer to develop the more electric vehicles, I think, for
Yes,
Toyota,
correct,
right?
correct,
Yeah.
indeed,
Yeah.
correct.
Well, then I would like to hear a round of news from your side. So, what did you find in the news? I think you read a lot about the fleet and mobility industry. Mr. Goossens, what did you find that everyone should know?
It is very frustrating to follow the news for the moment. They're flooding the news with everything that's going on with Trump. If you really dig a little, there's a lot that is important for fleet. Interest rates are important. Energy prices are important. I think what people should focus on the next 2 years is the fast pace of rollouts that are coming. There's startups. There is traditional OEMs that are coming with dedicated EV platforms. There's 800 volt platforms coming. So there's a lot of good presence coming our way. And I think that's the first one. And there were quite a few the last few weeks that maybe got snowed under a little. And the second one that people should really watch, and maybe we don't have the habit in the mobility world, is that anything that has to do with energy and mobility is getting squeezed into one. The charging, the vehicle to grid, the energy prices with their impact on TCO. So yes, fleet managers should know where the electricity price and the gas price and fuel prices are moving to, and what new business models are being developed. And also there's very interesting news to be found recently.
All right, we're going to check it ourselves as well. Thank you, Mr. Vervaet.
Maybe a bit linked to it, also to this specifically hydrogen, and hydrogen is something which a topic which I really follow quite closely. Recently in the news there has been a hub now created in Antwerp area, where basically there's going to be distribution of hydrogen. So these are type of kind of initiatives which we really welcome, of course, because we believe also from Toyota side in a kind of multi-tech approach going to zero emissions, and hydrogen is a strong pillar, we believe, and we see it really coexisting with battery electric developments. Because if we look a little bit on a worldwide level, the resources are limited, the rare earth content is limited, so therefore if you do kind of a spreading of risk, spreading of the resources to different rare earth content, this will only be of benefit of the world going to a zero emission result.
Yeah, so very positive.
Do you already have today light commercial vehicles running on hydrogen technology?
Not light commercial vehicles, but we are actually here in Zaventem. We have a center which is developing fuel cells, which we supply to truck companies, for instance. But of course, we are working also in the light commercial vehicles on we are studying this.
Okay.
Stephen, I always hope that your news of the day is a shameless promotion of our own websites,
Well, it's
fleeteurope.com and globalfleet.com. It's not?
No, it's not. It's not even an official news. It's more probably something that was mentioned in different publications and the press. And as journalists, we need to ask it, of course. I think last week, Reuters came with the news that Athlon could be for sale. Yes, so we have Pieter Goossens of Athlon here. I don't know if he can confirm or deny what has been written, but we will let him react. But it would, of course, be after the immense merger in this industry that we have with Ayvens. It would be again, yes, a new development in the vehicle leasing industry in Europe, where I think that it is important that we have different big leasing companies, yes, and that there is still enough competition between those companies to serve also the customers and to give choice. Next to that, I also think that for going forward with electrification, with hydrogen, with autonomous, etc., that the leasing activity is quite an interesting activity for most of the suppliers to have that kind of services, finance services in their package towards the customers.
In this speech or preach for diversity amongst leasing companies was also a question to Mr. Goossens, and I would really like to hear his answer.
Not an unexpected question, and I think not an unexpected answer. I'm not going to comment on anything that is rumor in the press. That is beyond.
Let us rephrase it. Do you agree that it's good that there is enough competition in the vehicle leasing sector?
I think for the end customer, competition is always good. You need competition, and I also agree that the leasing sector can play a vital, a very important role to smooth the path to electrification. Absolutely.
Yeah, but Stephen, if you look at the merger that is still happening actually between ALD and LeasePlan, what you also see now is that the total let's say shareholder value of the company is even a bit lower than the shareholder value was for ALD, let alone with the merger, which cost them, I think, 4.9 billion euros. You're the manager of buyer acquisitions, or not buying acquisitions. That's another role, of course. But I think you see, and that's what I also hear in the market. Sorry for speculating a little bit. But for example, you can be very big and you can be gigantic big, but you don't get more discount. And so you can, of course, make sure you have operational excellence, but it's not that you can get more discount from your partners, from the OEMs or from the maintenance partners, etc. So there will be a top level there, I think. And the bigger the big leasing companies get, the more room there is or space there is for smaller companies to grow as well. Maybe that's a good one for another podcast.
Why
the development of the leasing
Why not?
Industry. And we can speculate and then...
and they can agree.
And they can agree. We do the speculation.
Exactly.
But now let's go to our topic of the day. And let me tell that again. It's, of course, the electrification of a fleet. And it all involves a position paper presented to the European Commission, if I can say it that way, Stephen. Before we are going to ask Pieter and Pieter all kinds of questions about this, can you elaborate a little bit on what's in that position paper?
Yes, so in the position paper, we call the policymakers, the European Commission, but also local policymakers, to create an environment in which it becomes attractive for businesses and for companies to invest in electrification. What we are seeing is that most of the multinational companies have clear sustainability targets. They want to invest in sustainability and electrification, but there are limits in what they can do. And there are 3 to 4 elements that always come back. The first one is about the product and the supply. And they are saying, well, there are not enough smaller segment light commercial vehicles with enough range and autonomy that can suit our needs. That is the first one. So they ask that there could be some stimulus for car manufacturers to invest in that area. The second one is that there is a lack of infrastructure to charge electric vans, and mostly the bigger electric vans on public roads. Yes, so even if they can charge at home and at the office, often they are also on the road and they need to charge as well. And you can imagine that for van operators, they cannot afford that their van is blocked for 1 hour, 2 hours, etc., because a van needs to turn. Okay. Thirdly, they are asking for more predictability and transparency in terms of costs. They say, well, if you look at the charging costs across Europe, there is too much difference in terms of what they need to pay, and they don't know always upfront what the exact cost will be. Yes. And finally, they would love that there is a more clear plan on the longer term in terms of regulation and taxation. For example, Pieter, you also referred to it. You have some countries that then are going to promote one or the other technology, and 2 years later, they are going to cut in those incentives, which has an enormous impact on the strategy of those corporates. So that in brief are the elements coming back in the position paper, and also the advisory board with a couple of really big fleets have also set some recommendations for those policymakers to make it a little bit easier for them and healthier for the industry to accelerate electrification.
Okay, that's very clear. Thank you very much. You already pointed to one of the 2 Pieters, but people who are listening don't see which one, but you both nodded as agreeing on that, so that doesn't matter at all. So there are, let's say, 3 main topics. It's the demand and supply topic, it's the TCO topic, and it's the infrastructure topic. Mr. Goossens, which one of these 3 do you think is the most important one, or are they equally important?
Oh, I wouldn't want to choose one that is more important. If we do have to remember one thing, and that is both the beauty and maybe the irritating thing about LCV. LCV is much less about emotion. It's not about the company car. It's not about the shiny new toy. It's about the economy. It's about doing business. It is tools of a trade. So price and cost is a very, very, very important factor.
But if you look at the TCO at this moment of an electric vehicle, how is that developing? Because I think the selling price is still quite high when you compare it to diesel vans, but it should be on the long term with lower maintenance costs and lower fuel costs. It should be balanced out. How do you see that?
I think it is very, very market and fiscal environment dependent. It's also dependent on what you take in TCO. If you're not allowed into city center anymore, then the TCO calculation becomes very easy. You basically go out of business for that region. Yeah. So it all depends, but it is true that cars are further along in the evolution, and that we see that for vans, getting the TCO to parity and preferably lower is a bigger challenge. It also has to do, and people don't like this when I say it, but it is because diesel vans are also more lightly taxed, of course, than combustion engine cars. So it's more difficult for governments to create that delta between the fuel types.
Yeah, they need the money also.
They need to put money on the table, or that is not something that wins you elections. That is increase the taxes on diesel.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Perhaps a nasty add-on. Is a leasing company, is Athlon, able and willing, let's say, to support the TCO by taking more risk on the residuals?
No, a leasing company like Athlon has as a task to put our technical residual values on what we really expect the future to do for those vehicles. So taking the risk to launch the technology into the market is not something that will be very much appreciated by our shareholders. I think so. So if people are looking at lease companies to do that, then they're going to be disappointed. We have to predict the real technical value as we see.
Pieter Vervaet, how do you look at the TCO and the developments in that?
So yes, from an OEM side, I see quite some aggressivity coming. So basically, there are OEMs, including ourselves, who really have a task, especially in 2025, to meet the CAFE regulation.
Yes.
So in order to meet that, we need to sell, a certain percentage. We need to raise that bar. So therefore, the industry is doing there some efforts. And we feel that aggressivity is coming. So from that point of view, we do some calculations meeting the TCO in a way.
Yeah, and you're saying you have to really push on that, and in 2035,
Yes.
There will be a ban on selling combustion engine vans. Is that too soon, too late, just in time?
For me, I believe this is a comfortable timing from an OEM perspective.
Yeah.
Is it too? Suppose we would implement it now, that would be too soon. Definitely. I think we need another generation of electric, or let's say, zero emission technology. And there is technologies in the pipeline which make certain hurdles like range anxiety and these type of things, also cost of producing the car. Once these things are overcome, then we will definitely have the demand for it. But we need a few years as an industry to go to a better technology in order to have that kind of attractiveness from the product point of view, and also, of course, TCO.
Yeah. What do you both think about mandating larger fleets to go fully green, fully electric? Mr. Goossens, to start with you.
It irritates the hell out of me. I don't understand where the idea comes from that you can do this without punishing the wider supply chain. If you really want your groceries to become more expensive, if you really want the construction of buildings, our entire economy, in fact, to push up inflation again, then that would be the ideal way to do it from a mobility perspective at this moment. So for me, it's a pipe dream.
All right, Mr. Vervaet.
Well, basically, I would say two positions. Generally speaking, it's a kind of additional regulation which you put on buyers, which is basically, and especially the LCV buyers, they need these products as it's a critical part of their business. So if you force them into products which are not always 100% meeting their needs, then it harms their business two ways. I mean, first of all, cost, and secondly, inefficiency. So that's something which is, from a general point of view, I'm not welcoming this. I would say from the OEM general viewpoint, there's already push on the, because of the CAFE regulations.
Yeah.
There is already push on the OEMs to really make more EVs, LCVs. So this will, putting the push also at the customers, will a little bit relax, I would say, the OEMs.
Yeah, but
from a kind of pricing point of view. Yeah, because now there is a lot of push from the OEMs to really make that TCO equal. If you make it mandatory, then there is again some space again.
then
So that's
if you make it if you make it mandatory
For the customer.
for the customer, there could of course be the risk that the OEMs, they know then that the customer,
Exactly.
they have no choice than to buy, to
Exactly.
lease those electric vehicles, so they can put their price higher because they don't
And this
have
is not good.
any
in a
other
way.
alternative. So for you, it could be good in terms of your margins, but for the customer, it probably is not.
It's not.
But we have something called competition, right? There are a lot of brands, and they all want a piece of the pie. So doesn't that, in the end, make sure that the prices keep low? You know, they are not allowed, Steven, to talk about pricing together.
No, of course
So-
not. And that's not something that we do within the advisory board. But I don't know. I think it's more of a risk.
Yeah, but also what you and that's one of the things we mentioned in the statements. There are a lot of Chinese brands and new brands from Asia. I think mostly passenger cars at this moment, but maybe that's because I wasn't
Correct.
focused enough on the LCV market until, of course, recently, thanks to you. But yeah, they will also increase the competition also on the LCV, right? So I, to be honest, I don't think.
Also, there in the advisory board, for example, there is, let's say, almost a consensus that the industry is not in favor of raising, installing import taxes for those manufacturers. They want a level playing field, but they are saying, well, every competition that we can have in Europe is good, but it would be more supporting for the industry if the Commission would try to come with more support and creativity to energize the European market, yes, and not focus on punishing the non-European market.
That's a very good bridge to the third and last thing I want to point out for today, and that's the charging infrastructure. Isn't this something that the European government should focus more on and invest more on because it lacks of a good infrastructure in very countries? Mr. Vervaet, what do you think? Should this
Of course, the landscape is so much different in Europe. So the most dense network is in Oslo area. But if you go to the very north of Norway, in the same exact country, then you have a density which is lower than in Greece. So it's so much, still so much thing to do. So basically, indeed, I agree that in terms of infrastructure, there's still a long way to go.
But I think that is also, for example, that the European Commission could try to stimulate member states to create more transparency, predictability when it comes to energy costs. Yes, I think that also there in the
Correct.
how much cost charging your vehicle is also a question which is quite important for those
definitely.
fleet operators.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think honestly speaking, if you're a policymaker and you want to really go to zero emissions, I think we should go more in an environment where there's more kind of a demotivation on existing fuels. So like taxes on diesel, etc. You could reinvest in green energies. So there could be a kind of support taking from one hand to the other to really kind of regulating a bit more stability in the electricity prices. Because indeed, if you look at the price per diesel in Europe, okay, there is changes, differences. But if you look at the electricity price, that's massive changes. And especially you then start comparing the home charging versus public charging, that's an immense difference. And that makes, let's say, the forecasting of your TCO so difficult.
Yeah, so we need more transparency. Let's not go too much into detail about the different charging solutions, etc., and prices because they are not transparent. Mr. Goossens, what do you think? How important is support on infrastructure from the government?
I think I have a little bit of a different view on it. I don't believe in the chicken and egg story. I think there are examples, and we're sitting in Flanders. If governments can provide a stable regulatory and fiscal environment where companies believe that the EVs will come, then our capitalist system works perfectly. And the build out of charging infrastructure in Flanders, even with the enormous boom of EVs, is racing ahead of the cars. I think governments need to supply that stability, and we've seen some sad examples recently of pretty much jumping all over the place and not providing that stability. I think governments can help enormously with permitting, with making the opening and the installation of charging infrastructure a lot easier. It's not just the EU; it's local governments as well. I think governments usually, what part of our schooling system is paid for by governments, it's 95%. So the training of all these people, a lot of charging infrastructure providers are really struggling to get enough technicians on board. I think governments can play an enormous role there. But in really investing and mandating charging infrastructure, my opinion is that will come automatically if the cars are there.
All right, thank you. We have to wrap up already. I think it's good that the challenges that are in the position paper are now put on the table of the European government. I think for everyone also to show as industry that everyone wants to go electric and understands that it's important, but that we have to do it together with other stakeholders as well. Then we come to the end, but not before our closing notes. Yeah, well, the closing notes is all about taking a little peek in your agendas, not your private agendas, but the professional ones. Mr. Goossens, to start with you, what's for you important on your agenda for the coming weeks, month?
I really think it's an exciting time to be at an operational lease company. Our core business is to provide stability, or to try to provide stability. And I've been with Athlon for almost 20 years now. I have rarely known it to be more unstable and dynamic. So I think that my agenda is full of plans and working with the teams to provide our customers with as much stability as possible.
All right. Well, that was a very good one. I think your PR guy or women is now cheering. Very good, very good. Mr. Vervaet, what's on your agenda?
I will do my best from my side. Also at Toyota side, we are basically 2025 is a pivotal year for us. We already discussed the point on coming late with BEVs. Well, this year we will come with some newness, so that will come. There's already one car being announced, so there's more in the pipeline. So really focusing on this. At the same time, we have our Toyota Professional range, which is basically, we have now a complete family, with a large van, also with BEV. So definitely that will be our main task, to get more BEV penetration in for the LCVs.
All right. Also, your communication advisors will be very proud, but also very exciting, of course, for the industry. Steven, what's on your agenda?
So first of all, we hope, of course, that the European Commission is going to do something with the recommendations in the position paper. Yes, but next to that, we have had a great commercial fleets summit, yes, where we focus on a specific segment in the industry, but with Fleet Europe and with our company, with Global Fleet, we're also focusing on regions. So in the upcoming weeks, we will be quite busy with preparing the Global Fleet Summit that we organize in May in Portugal, and the APAC Fleet Summit in Bangkok in June.
All right, thank you. And on my agenda is, of course, we are still working very hard as Fleet Europe and globalfleet.com on building the new communities for the APAC, for the LATAM, on commercial fleets, on remarketing.
also
the inspiring women in
in
fleet.
fleet.
I was not forgetting that. And around the International Women's Day, we might have a surprise.
Yes,
For-
that's on the 8th of March, is International Women's Day. But
indeed.
you are working on something that could be really nice for the industry.
Exactly. So I would say stay tuned. Also, our communication team will be proud of me. Stay tuned and take a good look at fleeteurope.com. Pieter and Pieter, thank you very much for joining us. Steven, see you next
Always
time.
a pleasure.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank
and
you,
thank you
guys.
for
Thank you.
listening.